Good morning, everybody. I am here and you are here because we are crazy about gaming. This is episode 7, a beautiful Sunday morning here in my neck of the woods. I hope you're having a great morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you might be. Again, welcome to Crazy About Gaming. It is episode 7. Can't believe we're already at episode 7. And this is a fantastic one to be a part of the chat today because we're going to give you a chance to interact here shortly. We have got a special episode because this is our first ever developer interview, developer direct, I call it here on Crazy About Gaming. Today, I'm going to be joined with the couple of duo. That's right, just two. That's how big their studio is. Two dedicated developers from the studio called HideWorks Gaming. Right now, they're hard at work on a new title called Liminal Point, and we're going to show you the trailer and stuff for that game momentarily. We're going to bring them on, and we're going to have a ton of questions for them and stuff like that. So feel free to pick their brains here shortly. Let's get the chat out of the way first and acknowledge the people that obviously make this worth getting up in the morning for. We got the one, the only, a.k.a. Game Complainers, a.k.a. Perry is in the chat. We got Dre Venero hanging out with us this morning. We got D who comes in hot and heavy, and he is at work, but he is dropping a super chat. D, you are awesome, my friend. He drops $10 and says, good morning, sign into work, Noof in the background. It's a good day. Well, D, it's always a good day to have you with us, brother. Thank you for being here. We got the one, the only Fazah 9286 here this morning. Yes, it's going to be a good show. But let's not delay any further. Let's get the current release schedule out of the way. Let's talk about the games first, and then we're going to bring in our esteemed guest this morning. So real quick, coming up on March 15th, we have a game on the PC called, it looks like it is Alteros. Hopefully I pronounced some of these right. Then we got the 7 Deadly Sins Origins. We got Starship Troopers. It's sort of a fantastic title, obviously, but that's coming to Series X PC Switch 2. We got Grind Survivors, Deadline Delivery on the PC, Royal Revolt Survivors, Roostal, Brain Damaged, The Sunny Days. That are Postal. Is that like related to the old Postal game? Bonnie Bear saves from time. Okay, so we got some interesting stuff. Street Fighter 6 Alex must be like a DLC. Volunteer the Ascension. We got, the big one that comes out. Most people get this one every year. MLB The Show 26. Made of Skur VR. It's getting a VR version. Thomas and Friends. Wonders of Sidor. Whispers of the Eyeless. That's an interesting title. Tekken 8. Season 3. Dread Delusion coming out. Everwind. Snoopy. And the Great Mystery Club. That actually looks kind of cute. Movie Room, Cinema Management, Elemental Reforged. We got Dead Zone Rogue, with The Life and Suffering of Prince Jerain. Again, most of these are on PC. That's a Kickstarter campaign, by the way. Overthrown, coming to PlayStation, PC, Xbox Series X. Shadow Tactics. That one's coming out. Layer Land, The Cube Save Us. The Cube Save Us. Dig Drill. Hatsune Miku Logic Paint. Then on the 19th, we got a big one. This one, Crimson Desert, has been in development for quite some time. I've been seeing it all over social media, and it looks absolutely insane. I know a lot of people are excited for that one. Death Stranding 2 coming out for the PC. Dragonkin, The Banished, Xbox Series X, PC, PlayStation 5. We've got Rushing Beach. We've got the Coin Game, Super Basketball Classics, The Little Tomb. Stone Guard, and rounding out the end of the week, Ghost Master Resurrection, Rubato, Coffee Talk for the Android, Motor Rush Reborn. I love motorcycle games. I might have to look into that one. Crystal Fall, we got Machine Gun Fury, Remnants of Yore, and that'll end out the weeks. All right, we got the game releases out of the way. Hopefully there's something on that list that you guys find interesting and that you will pick up. Speaking of great games that you can get right now, I do believe on sale, and from our fantastic friends over at HideWorks Games, you can get The Devil Is in the Details, their very first psychological horror-based game. That one is on sale right now in the PlayStation Store. You can get it on Steam, and you can get it for the Xbox as well. So make sure you go check that out. Shout out to everybody who also shared out this podcast this morning. We greatly appreciate that. Especially guys like Perry and Wicked Hot and everybody who did. Shout out to Mr. Boomstick XL, who was nice enough to share this out for me this morning. Thanks, Boom. Greatly appreciate it. All right, we're gonna share because we're gonna bring up the trailer here for the game. All right, let's go here. Getting lost on all my screens. All right, guys. So before we bring out our fantastic guests, if you haven't seen this game, here's the trailer for it right now. This is from a little while back, and I do believe they're hard at work on the demo. So let's get right to it. We're gonna play it for you right now, guys. So hang tight. Here we go.
You never should have come back.
I got a message from Mira.
She's been gone a long time. Ran when things got hard. Left the band behind.
I need to know why. Why she vanished when everything was coming together. Isn't that why you're here too?
Did you forget what happened on that night? This place remembers,
And so do I. I'll be waiting. So come and find me. Mira.
All right, that was awesome. And let's bring in our guests. We got Lord Zero and Lady Zero from HideWorks Games. Welcome to Crazy About Gaming. That was a dynamite trailer, guys. Definitely excited about that. How about the chat, guys? Anybody here in the chat excited for that? Because that game looks really, really good. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us here.
Thank you. Good morning.
Sorry, Lady Zero has she lost her voice. That's why she's.
Okay. First off, I want to say thanks for being here, and second of all, thank you for making it at least a lead character that doesn't look like she got hit with a frying pan.
Yeah, we wanted to make a game that has like a really beautiful protagonist that we would like to see while we're playing.
I mean, women can be beautiful and they can be powerful, right? I mean, Gina Carano, she's a living example of that, But, the latest trends in game, we've talked about it here on the show a few times. It's like, what happened to all, like, the girls, like the Lara Crofts of the world, all these characters? I mean, there's nothing wrong with playing a female, but my God, like, most of them are like, what is going on? And then you look at some of the character models that they're based off of, or the people that did the motion capture, and you go, those people are gorgeous. So what happened to their main character,
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting time. Well, we grew up in the we were kids in the 90s, so we kind of resonate with the kind of look of characters from the 90s and early 2000s. So that's kind of the time period we want to bring back, and the kind of style we really love. So we're kind of bringing that back, talking about nostalgia, but that's pretty much one of the reasons we want to do this.
Awesome. Well, we're going to get right into the questions here. Your Wicked Hot is in the chat. He says he loves the top-down view, by the way. So, yeah, I'm digging that as well. It's kind of cool. I love the designs. Now, with your character here, is she a little bit more of a Jill Valentine or Claire Redfield, would you say?
That's an interesting question. I'm not sure. I think she's quite different from either one of them, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I would say she's a bit more fragile than the two of them. On the other hand, she's also a rock star. So there's this kind of duality between trying to look tough but being quite fragile at the same time. I think if you would, talk about in terms of personality, I think a character that kind of resembles her a little bit is probably Kate from Lost. She's tough, but at the same time, there's a lot of fragility to her. So I think that's a good example of, what to expect a little bit more in terms of personality.
Nice. I like that. Bringing up an old show I used to love. Yes. From Lost. At some point, when the game is finished and it's out for release, you'll have to put in a couple you have to put in a couple of perks there, or a couple of like hidden features. Maybe like you take a guitar and beat some of these zombies over the head with it.
Yeah. Actually, that's a lot of people have been asking us for that, and we actually had that. I would not say like locked, but it's definitely something that we already had in mind. Is,
Okay, yeah.
unique weapons after you finish the game as bonuses, and the guitar was definitely one of them. That you
Oh,
could
that's awesome. Yeah, because I'm
channel
thinking like
your
she starts out, she's playing that wicked riff, and with the guitar, and I was like, that would be so funny, like to beat one of those creatures over the head with that thing. Or you could have one where she like plays with an amplifier and turns it up on bust and knocks everybody to the floor.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Anyway, let's get right into the questions. Again, awesome chat here already. We got Will777 is here in the building. We got Nelson Gaming again. Some of those guys also have their own YouTube channel. A lot of people that are in the chat right now have their own YouTube channels, which is fantastic. All right, so let's get this first question out of the way. Sort of an introduction to your studio and yourself. So tell us a little bit about yourselves, your previous gaming backgrounds, and why you kind of decided to jump into this in the first place. It's a pretty tricky scene to navigate.
Well, on my end, I've been a AAA developer for many years, almost 20, I would say. So definitely have a lot of experience with a lot of titles, like really big AAA titles. So I got pretty far into that world, but there's always a part of me that wanted to make my own games and tell my own stories. So and I kind of felt like this is the right time to do it. So and try to bring some of that, like I was mentioning, like that vibe from the 90s and very early 2000s back, because that's like a completely bygone era now. So I kind of miss those games, and I kind of want to kind of recreate them, but with some quality of life features and new graphics, but
Right.
The same kind of aesthetic and art direction, and kind of the feel for it. So that's pretty much the reason why I kind of wanted to make games, and I kind of convinced my wife, who liked games a lot, to join me on this quest. So it's been interesting.
Awesome. So who does the writing for the game between the two? Or is that a collaboration? Like who handles what
I
type
do
of the
most of the
workload?
writing, but there's definitely a lot of collaboration. I always like check with her, and she gives me a lot of great ideas, and we kind of jam on it. So it's definitely very collaborative.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. So so it sounds like you've been around the industry for a while, like sort of 20 odd years of experience here. So that's fantastic. So you take that experience and lead it into here. So obviously I'm guessing this game draws a lot of inspiration from games like Resident Evil. Now, the one thing I used to hate back in the day, and I guess this was a product of the times, was that I never really could dig the old school controls, how you'd try to turn and the camera would kind of flip, and kind of made aiming kind of difficult at the time. So obviously now this is more modern. So how would you just kind of describe the feeling? Does this feel a little more modern now with sort of that old flair? Is that how you would put it?
Well, the controls are definitely more like a lot more modern. So basically, instead of having the old tank controls, especially because of the fixed cameras, now you have first our perspective, our camera angle is the same, right? So you always know which direction you're facing, so it's a lot easier than those old games with tank controls. So yeah, you're gonna definitely feel like it's a modern game in that sense. However, we also have options to bring back the old tank controls for people who really are into that, like the really old school Resident Evil players. If they want, they can play as if it was an old Resident Evil title where when you press up, it's always forwards where the character is facing. But the default controls for Liminal Point is, if you press up on the keyboard or on the gamepad, she just goes up vertically in the in space. So how you would expect a recent game to be.
And the aiming is that an auto lock on, or is it you just kind of got to line up things? How does that work?
So actually, I just wrote somebody was asking that on Steam actually. So it is it's not an auto lock. So you have free aim. So you basically you're when you're moving your analog or your mouse, you're moving her like in 360. And if you aim to an enemy after a second or two, it depends on the options. she will lock onto that target. So
Mhm.
she will rotate facing that target. But that's also an option you can turn off in the option. So basically, we have a lot of options to make sure that players will be able to play as they want. So if you want to have always free aim, you can do that. But if you want to have like this kind of hybrid, which is free aim, then you aim at a specific target without letting go. Kind of,
Mhm.
you need to aim it for a little bit. She locks onto that target, but if you hard press, the analog, or if you like do a big swing with the mouse, she will become free lock. She will become free aim again. So
Nice. Tell us about perhaps I'm always interested when I play these games is how your save point system works, because we saw with the new Resident Evil Requiem that they gave players sort of that option. If you played on the standard mode in what they call as modern, you had multiple game saves, and if you played on the classic mode, it was like the old days where you had to find the ribbons and put them in the typewriter. Are you doing something similar to that?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
personally, I'm more of a modern gamer, so I like the freedom of being able to save kind of anywhere. I never did really care for that whole ribbon system back in the day, but some fans might prefer something like similar to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have unlimited saves. That's when you start an game, you can pretty much choose different difficulty settings for combat, for puzzle, for another one that we're still investigating. But one of them is also the save type. So you have unlimited saves, like a modern game. You
Okay.
have the item use, which is pretty much the ink ribbons, and we have another third one that we're trying to be a little bit original here, and I've not seen one like this, which is you have a very, very few. We have shards. We don't have ink ribbons, so we have shards.
Right.
Basically, putting shards in a mirror. That's how you kind of that's your ink ribbons, basically. But there's another option, which is the third option, where you only have like a very, very few per location, and what you do, you have to kind of decide which save station you unlock, and once you unlock it, you can use unlimited saves. But the difference between that and the ink ribbons, so the ink ribbons you have to kind of manage
Yes.
when you save, so it kind of makes you afraid to save or afraid to lose too much progress, so maybe you should spend an ink ribbon. So there's element to the item management there. But this third option is more about which save is the most beneficial for me, because I only have, I can only unlock one save room. So which one is it going to be? So that's the third option that we're kind of playing with, which is a little bit different, but again, players will have the three options: and limited saves like ink ribbons, and this new one. So hopefully we'll have a good mix of things that people care.
Awesome. So that brings you to my next question. And the next question is simply, again, what is Liminal Point really about, and how does it draw inspiration from Resident Evil? How is it similar, and perhaps again, how is it different? I think you kind of already summed up parts of that, but kind of just give us a rundown about this game itself, the main character. Again, just let people know that's in the chat. They saw the trailer. I think you got an idea about it, but kind of give us an overview of what we can expect.
So Liminal Point is the story of Lyra Sterling. She's a former rock star that was ascending in the world of music. And she and her band got a really big contract with one of the biggest music producers in the world, a guy called Victor Langston, who lives in an island called Ashen Point. So they got this contract with this guy. They were living in his mansion, because that's one of the requirements of the contract, that they need to stay where he is. Very, very eccentric. So everything was going well. They were going to have their like really big debut concert. But on the night that the concert was going to happen, their lead vocalist, Mira, she just disappeared. And Lyra, who always saw herself as like a sort of a big sister kind of figure for Mira, doesn't understand why she's just vanished. And she wonders if it was part of if it was because of her, like something she did, she feels kind of guilt and remorse because she doesn't know what happened. And at the same time, she feels a lot of anger because, all her dreams and all the band's dreams kind of vanished because of Mira's disappearance. So a few years later, and in the meantime, also, because this is kind of important too, a few weeks later, there was a big disaster in the island, and the island is now completely remote. Everybody had to evacuate. Yeah, it's like a ghost town. So a few years later, Lyra and the other band members got a voice message from Mira, asking them to come back to Ashen Point, to the place where their dreams turned to ash. So now they're going to come back and they're going to try to find Mira and try to figure out what happened. So yeah, this game is kind of reminiscent of the style of older survival horror games, like older Resident Evils. Very inspired also by Silent Hill in terms of some of the vibe that's going on. And the main difference is that it's like a alternative rock kind of aesthetic to it. Side the kind of the world of music and how that
like
affects
that.
characters.
Like that. I play guitar myself at least once in a while, so and I love hard rock music, so that in itself is fantastic. It's good to know. Yeah, no, sounds like a very interesting game, and like I said, we got fans in the chat already really digging the sort of the isometric view. It definitely changes things up, and we know there's some really big popular games out there that use that style of view. Diablo being one of the big ones. But the character designs look fantastic. So I don't know, you don't give away too much about the game. Obviously, certainly don't want spoilers for people, but who would you say then? We know who your main protagonist is, and you said it was Lyra, correct?
Yeah, Lyra Sterling is the main protagonist.
So who is sort of, I always say you can't really have a great game without sort of the great villains. And we know that Resident Evil has been known to have them over the years. Wesker, the Tyrant, the Nemesis, to some extent, even like the Lickers, which are, the smaller enemies of the game, but they've been kind of like one of those enemies that sort of became like, I guess you could say like a staple for the franchise, sort of, instantly recognizable. You look at it and go, well, I know what game that's from. So how about yourself? Is there sort of like a big bad enemy, if you can even say that at all? Like, you don't want to give away too much, but what are we up against here?
So if you look at the trailer, you can kind of see that Mira which is the girl that appears with the roses in her head. She's basically the main antagonist. She and Victor Langston are the main villains of the game.
Interesting. All right, cool. Right now, so where are you at? Would you say progress-wise? Like, are we? I know. I think from one of your social media things, you guys, you're working on a demo. Do you have one ready at this point, or?
Oh, we're still. So we were planning on having the demo finished late February, but unfortunately, we kind of, the amount of things that we still needed to do to finish the demo, like UI, menus, options, settings, some of the combat features, a fully working map, and all these kind of things. We were like, instead of trying to just kind of rush and try to make something kind of half-assed to release the demo, let's make things proper. Let's rewrite the code. Let's make things clean. And unfortunately, that means we'll delay the game, but not the game. Sorry, the demo. But in the end, that's going to be more beneficial for everybody, including for ourselves in terms of releasing the game, because with this new set of tools and everything being a lot more polished, that's going to allow us to create more game content in less time. So it was a little bit of a pain to have to do this at this point, but I think it was kind of important. And when we release the demo, it will be a lot more polished, and especially because when you release the demo, that's like the biggest moment. That's the biggest milestone before the game releases. That's where most people's eyes are going to be in the game. So we want to make a really good impression and make sure that we don't let our fans down. So we decided to spend like quite a lot of time on it. So the demo scope is also a little bigger, with all the features that you would expect in the final game. Because if we release the game in February, you would be missing like a lot of the features, so it would not be as polished. So we decided, let's just take a step back and really make the game and the demo amazing.
Well, we applaud that. Obviously, demos they're awesome. They're also a huge risk. So we're going to get into that question here in a second. Basically, because that is going to lead into my next question: is it harder or easier to be an game dev these days? And I guess my first question before we get right into that one is, so what engine are you guys building this with? Is it a proprietary, or are you using like Unreal? What kind of
No, we were using Unreal. If we would make a proprietary engine, that would take
way longer?
That would take 20 years for us to make it, or we would need a huge team,
Right. Yeah, I figured as much.
Some people do it, right? Some people do it, but that's a very extreme. That's a very rare situation where people are so savvy programmers that they know everything and they can just start an engine from scratch. Yeah, that's not our case.
So you've been around the industry for a while, so you probably worked on various iterations of the Unreal Engine. How much easier is it, would you say, now compared to in the day, or does the complexities of making the games now is the hard part? Because obviously, when you look at games and you're going for fidelity, we're talking about resolution, you're talking about all these frame rates, you're talking about textures and lighting and all this sort of stuff, reflections, everything that kind of goes in the game. The big buzzword all the time is the ray tracing. Like, the engines get more powerful, you get more tools, but at the same time, does it help, or is it just the demands of making something that looks and runs fantastic? Is that a challenge?
Well, making hardware has always been a challenge in game development, right? I can say, because I've been making the first games I did professionally. They were on PlayStation 3, so it was definitely a lot more complicated to get stuff to look the way we wanted it to look on that hardware. It was a lot more difficult. So in a way, hardware has been improving. It's been removing restrictions in terms of what we can do, so it's a lot easier on the memory management side of things. On the other hand, there's a lot more complex options, like you mentioned, ray tracing and all that. There's a lot more options, a lot more knobs to turn. So it became a lot more complex. So it kind of eased the difficulty in one aspect of game development, but on other aspects is becoming increasingly more complicated. And the games themselves, they become more complicated with more systems. That, which is also one of the things that we don't want to do in the game, is like overcomplicate it with a lot of systems. I don't know why my thing just kind of went off there. Can you? I don't know. There's like an alarm or something.
Yeah, I can hear like a buzzing. I'm thinking, is it my house or is it somewhere else?
No, don't turn that off, because if that one turns off, I think this computer is going to be off. Can you put it on silent though? There's a button to silence it. Okay, Lady Zero is looking into it. I'm sorry for the noise. I don't know if you guys can hear it.
It's very faint. I can hear it very. I thought it was in my house here.
Okay.
In the chat, he says, "Are you working with Unreal 4 or 5 at this point?"
It's Unreal 5.
Okay, so the latest version. Okay, nice. Where was I going with this? So what I was going to say was like, you see a lot of games nowadays. Everybody sort of usually has a target in mind, like of trying to get a game out at a certain point in time, and sometimes you'll see a trailer for a game, and it's like, and it'll come out and then like you don't see the game anymore until 4 or 5 years later. So obviously the development cycles are becoming extremely long in the tooth for a lot of people. GTA 6 is certainly one of the big examples. But I mean, there's a lot of reasons I think for that. But it's like what do you think is a large reason behind a lot of game delays these days? Is it just again the complexity of the type of games? Because we saw like in the 360 PS3 era, like a lot of studios were able to pump out, sometimes 3, if not 4 games within the generation of consoles. And now we're lucky we even see 1.
So there's definitely the increase in team sizes, the complexity of the games. But I also think a lot of it is also related to maybe the leadership is not as focused as it was back in the day. I think before they kind of wanted, they knew better what they wanted the nowadays. And also there's a lot of, outside external factors right now with the investors and all that. I think that adds an extra layer of complication. And then the games need to, they need to please a lot of masters at this moment. So you need to, like thinking about, for example, Ubisoft, right?
Yeah.
there's so many, like all their games use all their systems, so it's always very cluttered. There's a lot of stuff going on there.
Mhm.
um and I think all that in the end kind of does not make, doesn't help making games. I still think most of the games nowadays, even AAA games, they could be taking a
Mhm.
lot less time to make than they do.
Yeah.
There's a lot of waste, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you a
They're
perfect
just not
example,
focused.
right? I'll give you a perfect example, and I like what you said too, because we've had this debate like a lot. I'm not a developer, right? I don't know why, and I'm not going to pretend to be. But as a fan and someone who follows the industry closely, as well as a lot of people in the chat here, like we always have sort of our reasoning as to why we think games are falling by the wayside, what's going on, and I think like I wonder sometimes if studios are sort of what they call it's too big for their own britches, like where they have so many moving parts and the expectations are so crazy that maybe they need to scale back some of the projects or things like that. Because I'm going to make an example. This is just a rare example. I'm going to talk about Hellblade, for example, from a fantastic studio, Ninja Theory. You're probably familiar with them. Like they kind of came out of nowhere when they did the original Hellblade, right? And the game launched, come out, fantastic game. I love the first one, and it came out, looked fantastic, ran good, was a pretty big success for them. And then, of course, Microsoft goes and buys them, and they become part of the Xbox Game Studios plethora. And then all of a sudden, the hype goes up. Everybody's expecting Hellblade 2. I bought the game, I beat the game, I still like the game, but I felt very disappointed in that game. And it took a lot longer for that game to come out. And the first thing they did, they threw more money at it and they made the studio way bigger. But then all of a sudden it took way longer for them to make this game and get it out. And then it kind of comes out and it won its way shorter than we expected. There was just some weird design choices, in my personal opinion, that I kind of know what's going on here. Like this game should have been a massive thing for them, and I think it sort of came out with a fizzle instead of a bang, right? So is that kind of the case? Sometimes you can have the money, and that's where I'm going to go with my next question is like being an indie dev versus being part of a bigger studio, which you were, as you said, where you kind of sit back and let people dictate what your day is going to look like, what your job is, whereas now you kind of dictate your schedule and what you expect from your own product. So is it harder to be an indie dev? Is it kind of easier because it kind of flips both ways? I mean, you're on your time schedule, you're on your budget, but at the same time, it's you and your wife. You kind of get to call your own shots. You're directly responsible now for your own successes or failures, so to speak. So kind of weigh in on that.
So regarding what happened with Hellblade, of course, I cannot really speak to it because I did not work on it.
Mhm.
But there's in AAA, there's a lot of nowadays. There's a lot of ways to a lot of resources used for some stuff that pretty much doesn't matter, and inflating budgets like that they didn't need to be inflated, and unfortunately that means that sometimes layoffs will happen because then you don't reach your goals. But yeah, there's a lot of fluff that it's a game, but sometimes people forget it's a game and they just start making stuff that doesn't really matter for the game. In fact, it could make the game noticeably worse. And that's unfortunate. In terms of having more people, it also means more voices to listen, less focus, because every there's a lot of decisions taken by committee. There's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, like somebody mentioned from chat. That's exactly one of the words we used to use in AAA, because sometimes we say, hey, we need to kind of decrease the number of people involved in some of the decisions, because otherwise everybody wants something different, and then you start to nobody is going to like this. Everybody's going to be like but nobody's going to really like this, because if you take a decision, it should be your decision. So make sure that some people love it and some people hate it. It's okay, but when you try to just please everybody, nobody's going to be pleased and nobody's going to love it. So that's the worst place to be. In terms of AAA versus indie dev, so let me rephrase. Let me think this. I think there's different types of difficulty. Definitely, it's kind of annoying when you have too many people in AAA. and you don't have a focus on the things you need to do. And that's also one of the reasons that I kind of wanted to go indies, because I see it sounds a little bit condescending, but it's not. It's like I see people doing their jobs, but sometimes I think they're not doing a good job, and I think even I could do better, even if I'm not in that specific role.
Right.
And now we just started making games, and kind of proves my point that a lot of people are working in games, but maybe they shouldn't be working in games, especially when games merged with film and television. So there's a lot of people from film and television, and don't get me wrong, I love people from film and television, but a lot of these people, they don't love games, they don't want to play games, and that kind of shows as well in their work in the games, because they don't. Some people, not all everybody, of course, because like I mentioned, there's a lot of wonderful people that came from those backgrounds, and I work with them, and I love them. But there's also a lot of people that don't care about the game as a product. They just care about having something visually beautiful that they can use on their portfolio or their reel. So they don't even play games, right? So, and that ultimately kind of makes the games pay the price as well. But I would say that I think that the leadership, and it's kind of weird for me to say this because I was also part of leadership, but I think leadership being unfocused and not knowing what they want and not wanting to take risks is definitely part of the issue of what's going on the AAA industry.
We've alluded to that before. I think you said that too many cooks in the kitchen is definitely very apparent. I think that's the danger you run when the bigger the studio gets, the more moving parts. And I don't think sometimes a lot of these people come in with a clear focus as to what they need to get done and truly understand the magnitude of a timeline and what they got to get done. I mean, I know the industry's scared of the word crunch, but sometimes the best work comes out of crunch. We've seen other developers in the past have basically told us that sometimes, when your ass is on the grindstone, you really get down to it. You put away the phone for 5 minutes and you get right into it. Obviously, like I said, I think the big thing for indies, from my perspective, looking in, like I said, there's a lot of freedom there to kind of, like I said, to build a product that you're proud of, that you're passionate about, because a lot rides on it. Like I said, your income relies on it. Everything relies on what you put into the game. And a great studio right now, shout out to them, and making some fantastic games, is Tarsier, doing amazing stuff. Obviously, their studio is probably a little bit bigger than yours, but they're an indie studio that hit it big with Little Nightmares and have since had a few big hits after that. Reanimal just came out lately and looks like a fantastic game, which I still have to pick up. So yeah, it was advantages and disadvantages for sure. So I guess that's the other side, is how do you navigate this crowded gaming scene? Because it's something that in the past, and as I grew up as a kid, certainly through the 16-bit era, you didn't have 40 different games a week. Plus games, they had to come out and they had to work, because they couldn't rely on the internet. They couldn't rely on 5,000 updates. So, like, how does your game? How do you try to make it stand out amongst a very tough crowd? You mentioned again, a demo helps a lot, but if a demo is not polished, or maybe you give the fans the wrong chunk of the game, perhaps it gets received poorly, and that could put people off. It can put people on or put people off. So how do you navigate that risk? Because it's something you just got to say, I'm confident in my product, and I'm going to go and put it out there, and I'm very certain that people will enjoy it if you like this sort of genre.
So that's something that even I did not have experience on that, because I never worked on the marketing side of things. So that's one of the reasons why we did our first game, The Devil's in the Details, to kind of learn the whole process of indie game development, like from start to finish. And it was a very good learning experience, and we learned a lot, especially on the how to get people to see your game. Definitely genre is the most important, getting something that people have familiarity with it, because our first game is very unique, and that makes it really hard to market, because it's like you can really compare it to other games, so people don't know what to expect, and that causes people to become a little bit suspicious, or not as interested. But if you tackle the aspect of familiarity, like, for example, our game is Liminal Point is very easy to market, because you say it's like Resident Evil and Silent Hill survival horror game. That's it.
Mhm.
People see the game and they know what to expect. They know the kind of feelings they're going to have and how they're going to feel how they play the game.
Mhm.
So it's a lot easier to market. So that's definitely something that we learned. In terms of how to get more eyes and visibility on it, I think having a product that really has um, not just the gameplay, but also
Mhm.
like resonates with people aesthetically or in terms of story or character, something that they kind of resonate with,
Yeah.
that appeals to their nostalgia a little bit, but it could be completely different. Like Lyra is completely different, but the look and vibe kind of appeal to people's
Mhm.
nostalgia of things that they loved from before. And I think definitely that helps a little
Yeah.
bit get people interested about the game and get more eyes on the game. And then we played with something a little bit different, like it's
Mhm.
like a classic survival horror, but from an isometric perspective, and that's quite different, and people seem to really dig that.
So obviously, small studio. It's you and your wife, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So are you guys, is this kind of then your more or less your full-time job, or do you kind of have to work a regular job and then do this in between? Because some people, that's what they do. And that is very difficult to manage is, life, social, all those things all at one time. So how are you guys approaching it?
Yeah, it's definitely very challenging, especially because we don't have millions of dollars, or we don't have a
Hmm.
publisher. So basically, all the game and all our living expenses are being taken from our own savings. So
Oh.
that's definitely very complicated to manage.
Hmm.
Especially we don't want to delay the game, but we want to make the game as polished as possible, but we also don't want to delay it too much because unfortunately, like money will eventually run out.
Hmm.
So there's a balance there that we need to kind of constantly battle. So yeah, it's definitely very very complicated in that sense.
Yeah.
And in life, like I said, we're doing it full time right now. I don't know if at some point we'll need to kind of find temporary jobs to kind of just keep us going while we're working on the game.
Okay.
We'll have to
Yeah.
see, or maybe there's other avenues we could use, like Kickstarter or something like that. I'm trying to hold off on those as much as possible because I kind of would like to just not ask anything from our fans until it's like until it's time to buy the game. But we'll have to see how that goes. It's an option, but we'll try to hold off on that as much as possible.
Okay.
But yeah,
So
it's quite challenging, even if it's just if it's our full time work at the moment.
nice. Well, it's good to know. Like I said, because you're obviously going to put a lot of attention to detail because there's a lot more riding on it personally, right? As opposed to if you if you work for a big studio and the game comes out and flops, it's never a good thing. But at the end of the day, unless you're getting laid off, I suppose you can get up and still have your job and go back to work and find and do another project or whatever. But you guys don't really have that luxury. It's like you are the administration, right? You can't really lay yourselves off, but it's interesting to know because, like I said, I know there are devs out there who kind of work on things in between their regular job, which is never easy, and it's never easy either. Just trying to manage everything at home and staying on a timeline and getting the stuff out, and again having more of a limited budget imposed. It is the goal at least to try to get this game out perhaps then this year. And somebody was asking in the chat, what platforms is it coming out on? I'll go ask that question. So is it the goal to get it out this year and on what platforms, just to reiterate so people know?
So the goal was definitely to have it released at the end of this year.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll have to see because again,
Right.
we're trying to make sure the game is as polished as possible, and with more features. So we're still trying to release it at the end of the year, but there's a bigger chance now that it will slip because we want to make sure
Right.
that we don't want to be that kind of game that just releases because it just releases and then nobody cares for it because it's unpolished or buggy or the story is not it does not resonate with people and it's unsatisfactory.
Mm-hmm.
So we definitely want to make sure we spend enough time to make sure that people will love the end product because we want to love the games we make as well and we want people to love it. So we want to make sure that we're committed to our craft and that people will remember this game not just as another game that goes and comes by, but something because it's special for us, right? We're spending like 2 years of our time making this, So we want to make sure that it's special for others as well. In terms of consoles, it's coming for Steam, GOG, PS5, and Xbox Series.
Okay. Is there potential, depending on, I guess, how this game comes out and is received, is there possibility that it ends up on Switch too? I know we do have a lot of Switch fans in the house here.
Yeah, for sure.
At least possible. You never rule it out, right? But you don't have a plan.
So
but
we contacted Nintendo actually at the same time we contacted Xbox and PlayStation. But at the time, Nintendo was not really giving Switch 2 dev kits to anybody,
right?
And I believe that's still the case because some other indie friends of mine told me that they're still kind of locked. But it's just a matter of like if they look at our game and they feel like it's something that they can add to their store and they're willing to let people get the dev kits. We would definitely love a Switch 2 version. But at this point also, because we still have so much work to do and it's very complicated to release.
We totally understand.
It's
got to make a build.
If it comes, which I hope it does, because I would love to have our game on the Switch. It will come after the game's been released on other platforms.
Yeah, well, oddly enough, I bought Resident Evil Requiem, and guess which platform I bought it for? I actually bought it for the Switch too, knowing that it was obviously going to be the least impressive version of them all. But part of the reason I decided to go with that is just because I thought it'd be really cool to have this game on a portable platform as well as play it at home. And so, like I said, I'm very happy with the Switch version of this game. It actually looks really good. Yeah, the resolution took a bit of a knock, but honestly, it still runs and looks pretty damn amazing for hardware that is obviously definitely not on par with PlayStation 5 or the Xbox consoles. So yeah, I'm pretty impressed with what they did, and it just tells you that the little Switch 2's got it might be, like I said, maybe the Switch 2 is not as much of a thud as some people might think, or maybe again it's great dev teams that are able to push the envelope on it. So could be a little bit of both, I guess.
Yeah. So what do you like about it? So you like the portability aspect of it, right?
The portability, honestly too, like I know some people will buy. This is a factor for some people. They buy a game on PlayStation or Xbox because they like the achievements and the trophies. For me personally, I could care less. And the one thing that drives me bonkers about achievements and trophies is the fact that other people look at your stuff and they judge you as a gamer. Oh, you don't have 100 hours in this game, and you don't have all these. It's like I could care. Like when I play a game, I play it for the have fun. I always say when a game makes me angry, I don't want to play it anymore. That's a turnoff for me. Games that make me swear more than laugh, cry, or whatever are not the kind of games for me. That's why I can't do Souls-like games. I hate them because they're just the no difficulty option just sucks. To each their own. I mean, they're great games. I love their stories, and that's the thing. I want to buy those games. I've tried them in the past. I bought Sekiro. I bought even bought the new one that everybody. What's the new one? The one that everybody bought. Somebody help me out here. What's the latest From Software game that everybody? Elden Ring. So I even tried that game out, and no, it's just can't get into it. See, I like games like what you're doing here, and I like games like Resident Evil because they're linear. They don't take up more of your time than really necessary. I don't need 40-hour games anymore. I don't need 100-hour games. I got a social life. I got to work. And this is something else too. I think that's killing the industry is too many AAA developers are trying to push the envelope, and that means these massively long games. That's why I'm terrified of buying a game like Crimson Desert, because I guarantee you that's a game that's going to suck your whole life. Like you're going to play that one game and you're not going to be able to really play anything else. So
that's what I was also referring to, kind of unfocused when I was talking about AAA, like inflating the time that the game takes. Just kind of the game itself loses the focus, right? So you have to add a lot of filler. And that makes the games don't feel as good, in my opinion. So in our case, we want to respect gamers' time. So we are aiming for 8 to 10 hours, but the really good story told in 8 to 10 hours. So hopefully, it's going to be like great 10 hours, not like good 10 hours and then 30 that kind of sucks, right? We definitely don't want that. Also, pointing to something you mentioned.
Yeah.
I bought Resident Evil 9 for PlayStation 5, but I actually also played it on the PS Portal. So I also had it a little bit of a
Oh yeah, I forgot about
portable
that.
experience. And a lot of games we play on the old Switch and on the Steam Deck. So our game is also going to be totally playable on the Steam Deck. So there's that too. So if people love to play games on a portable device like the Steam Deck, they're going to feel right at home with Liminal Point as well, because it's one of our main testing platforms as well.
Fantastic. Well, you got a lot of people are very excited in the chat right now, let me tell you. And like I said, you guys have already nailed the look. You've nailed the vibe. We're all getting that. So I think as long as, like I said, I think you kind of nail like the gameplay and it feels comfortable and it feels familiar. And then I don't see how you guys can really kind of fail with this game. Obviously there's a lot of work once you kind of get to that stage where you're basically just focused on the bug testing. But yeah, no, things are checking out so far. I had a few more questions for you. I won't take up too much more of your time. I think you just kind of answered. Well, I was going to say, how far would you say a Liminal Point is in terms of production? I guess what are some of your goals upon the game release? And again, how do you expect this game to stand out in the very crowded indie game scene in particular? So, yeah.
In terms of the production, we're focused mostly. So we have a big game design doc in terms of like locations, puzzles, and the story flow. But we're now filling in the blanks. We're finishing writing the technology to make the tools and all that to kind of make it easier to make puzzles. We're financing the combat, adding the last combat features, and some other new features in the game that will make add some uniqueness to the game. So in fact, yesterday I kind of finished writing a new feature for the game that kind of makes it a little bit more unique, that has not been shown yet. So we're writing those things, and then we're doing a similar path as we did with our previous games, where we mostly, play tested the prototype until it was really fun and really, it was really polished and really fun, and then we kind of just make the tools to make the whole game easier for us, and so we can make more content quicker and easier. So we're at that stage. But the game itself is pretty much all planned. We have a lot of the levels already kind of laid out. It's just a matter of like start to polish and kind of feel like do more play testing, see where's the point of stress and not, and where people are getting stuck. But there's still also a lot of content and a lot of game that still needs to be done. Like there's still quite a few enemy types that we still need to do. There's the boss battles that we haven't really tackled yet. There's only one that we kind of made, but it's still very early in development. So I would say we're in production, but it's very early in production, if that makes sense. We don't have like a beta, so it's not playable from start to finish at this point.
Well, one thing I got to give credit to, I suppose, for the team that makes the Resident Evil series is how they constantly just they bait you along with the lick, especially in your initial run, because I'm still in my initial run of the game, but they bait you along with sort of just enough ammo and stuff to kind of just get the job done. And then when you beat the game, of course, you have options to go back and play it differently or speed run or whatever, and then do it with unlimited ammo and stuff like that, which I personally enjoy that more. I always said, for me, I love playing these style of games when, the clip is not constantly running out and I'm not searching for a crate or a box to open. But I love how they do that, though. They keep you on your toes, right? And it's pretty cool. And I'm sure your game will be very, very similar. Puzzles have obviously been a big part of the RE games, and to some extent, I guess, even Silent Hill. But how big is the role in that? Are puzzles and stuff as well, or is it very Resident Evil-like in terms of that? Like, get the key, get the crank, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, it's very similar to those games. You have the regular puzzles, where you have to find the key, or you have to read documents to find a safe code or something. Sometimes you need to find an item like a crank. But we also have, other puzzles, like more in terms of like the night puzzle from Resident Evil 2, or like the liquid puzzles, also from Resident Evil 2. We have also that kind of more
Nice.
different type of puzzle in the game. So we definitely want to make sure that we have a good balance of combat, story, exploration, and puzzles, because I think they're all part of the survival horror ecosystem, and I think they all kind of have their moments. So you create moments of tension, highs and lows. You have to check your inventory. You have to kind of decide what to take. You have to look at the map, decide where to go, which paths you cleared, where is safe or where is not. Oh, I found this new key. Oh, this key is probably going to be used there. Or I found this piece of it. I'm looking at this new puzzle. Oh, I remember there's something that I could use from some document I read. This kind of thing. So you'll have a lot of different activities to do in the game. So hopefully it will feel like a real solid survival horror experience.
Nice. What kind of tech specs are you sort of like in the aim in this? Is it like, because we get this a lot, for the community, like, oh, is it 30 frames a second, 60 frames? Are you targeting like a 4K resolution, those sorts of things?
Yeah. So right now the aim is definitely 60 FPS on consoles. We're trying, and that's also one of the reasons we're rewriting the game in terms of systems to make sure it runs at. We're trying to make it run at 60 on the Steam Deck, because right now it was running at 48.
Okay.
So we definitely want to see if we can get, no promises, but we're going to try to get it to run at 60 on the Steam Deck.
Sure.
But also we actually have ray trace on, so the game should look really, really beautiful. And we're still trying to make sure the game runs at 60 consistently. So because again, at the end of the day, the graphics are important, but the most important thing is the game feel and the make sure that people have a good frame rate, a good FPS.
Yeah, well, I'll take a solid 30 any day over a constantly bouncing frame rate in games. I'll tell you that from my perspective. I'm not a real tech dud. I mean, obviously, if I was concerned about tech to the ultimate degree, I wouldn't have bought my copy of Resident Evil Rec Room for the Switch 2. I would have got it on a higher end platform, but to me, again, it's just got to run good. Like 90% of the time, it has to run good. There's always that exception. Even on the Switch 2 version of that game, the only time I found it had a little bit of a chug was in the mansion scene when you got to the bar area. For some reason, the frame would drop there. Maybe it was a lot more stuff on the screen that just caused everything to
which
chug
area?
a little. In the original part, like in the hotel, when you got to it was like the bar.
Oh yeah,
where there's a safe, and then you find her handgun or whatever, and those two hags come out, the singing hags or whatever the hell they are. That area kind of stuttered for some reason in that spot. But
I think it's because on that spot, just thinking from out of memory, I think you can see over the balcony downstairs. So there's definitely a lot of skeletal meshes, like a lot of enemies moving around, and there's a bigger space. So I think that might be one of the reasons why that area is probably stuttering. And it's also a section that connects to a lot of different areas. So all those areas that you're connected to, they also need to be loaded at the same time. So it's might be the reason why that game has why that section in the game is less performant.
Yeah, it was just a slight drop. It wasn't nothing detrimental. It'd be way more detrimental if you were getting surrounded by a pile of enemies and the game starts to chug really bad. So, yeah, I haven't played it in the actual. I've only played it in dock mode so far, so I haven't actually played it in the portable aspect yet. So it'll be interesting to see how that game runs with that. But anyway, enough about RE. Everybody's enjoying it. It's great, and like I said, we're all super happy. That there's a lot of inspiration from the two biggest franchises, RE and Silent Hill, obviously in your games, because those are just phenomenal series. Just curious, what do you think about the stuff that Supermassive Games has been making? All those the trilogy or whatever, the anthology. You guys ever get to dabble with those games at all?
Is that you're talking about the Quarry?
Yeah, they made the original game that set them on the go was Until Dawn, and then
we played Until Dawn. We played the Quarry, and we played there was another one. We actually have other two games from them that we still haven't played.
Yeah, I mean, House of Ashes I think is their best one after since Until Dawn. Until Dawn, I personally think is still their best work. And you can tell too that they were backed by bigger money with Sony, because if you look at Until Dawn, like the the production just feels higher in that game compared to the other anthology.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I personally really like The Quarry.
Quarry is
Until
really
Dawn
good.
is a very fun game too. I think I maybe like The Quarry a little bit better, but they're interesting games for sure.
Yeah, I mean their stuff is, I don't know how they were stack up technically. Those guys are busy. I mean, heck, they made a ton of games in the last few years. But obviously theirs is more about like the decision making. So I would imagine like in terms of tech, I don't know, maybe I don't know if it's simpler or more complex. I mean, their graphics are really good in their games. Like usually their character animations and all that stuff look really good, but like I don't know, I don't know if it's easier per se because their stuff is just kind of like they always have those set views more or less for most of it, and then it's just you're gonna pick path A or path B, and then the story's gonna branch out from there. I don't know.
Yeah, so their games are pretty much like an interactive movie.
Yeah.
So there's definitely there's some parts that are a lot easier than other games because you don't have to constantly worry about what the players will actually look at while
Mhm.
things are happening. And in terms of gameplay systems, is also a lot easier because it's basically just a walk. I don't want to be saying this in a derogatory kind of way, but it's basically a walking simulator with a lot of interaction in terms of your
Yeah.
decisions. So there's definitely a lot of simplicity on that sense. On the other hand, because their graphics are so polished, and all the animations are so polished and everything is motion captured, it's pretty much like filming a large movie, like
Mhm.
Avatar or something. Like the
Yeah.
entire movie, it pretty much is done in mocap. So that's definitely a huge level of complexity on that end. So they got easier on the gameplay side. They got intermediates on the tech side because it's definitely easier to manage a game that
Yeah.
you have full control of the camera in terms of performance. However, because your graphics are so high bar, it
Yeah.
also brings its own set of complications, especially on the animation side. And it's a very time consuming game to make because it's pretty much making a gigantic movie
Yeah.
where people can choose different branching paths, and then you need to make the movie for that version. So it's many movies in one. So there's
Correct.
definitely easier things and then more difficult parts in other things. I mean, overall, they did a phenomenal job. The games look really good. Again, the anthology.
Yeah.
We have it, but I think we start playing one, but was really not. I think was one in the submarine or something, but it was not really interesting, so we didn't really go through
Yeah.
much.
The one on the ship was Man of Medan. Had what's his name?
Yeah, that's
The
the one that we started,
yeah.
but we have not finished that one.
Yeah, yeah, that was that was actually well, I played them all, like I said, and I think that was one of the weaker ones in the series. I love the Sean Ashmore though, was the lead character there in that game. It was cool because he did Quantum Break before that. So for those who don't know, Sean Ashmore, he played the original, what was it, Iceman in the X-Men movies. So all right, so I got one more question for you, then I'm just going to open it up to our audience. And this one is just, I guess, what is the biggest challenge for making a new game? Would you consider to be things like marketing, tech, overcrowded storefronts, or potentially the reviews of the game? And I'm referring especially a review bomb. Now, you guys probably won't be subject as much to this because you're an indie dev, but like you see this all the time at the big AAA studios. When a game comes out, especially a game that has a lot of hype or it's attached to a platform, it often gets review bombed, which is awful. I wish you'd take that crap away. Period. But a good review can go away, but it's a good review can go a long way, but it's not the be all end all. But so just reiterating that question, when you're making a game like this, again, is it a combination maybe like so marketing, tech, overcrowded storefronts, and then again the demo / reviews?
I think everything is difficult.
Yeah, it's probably a combination of parts.
Yeah, marketing is definitely very difficult. Get visibility, especially when we don't have millions of dollars for marketing, because AAA studios, their budgets are different, so they're like, we don't have to really work with people, we don't really need to engage with the community because we can just, here's 5 million, 10 million, $100 million because we had this kind of situation in some of the games I worked on. Here's $100 million for marketing or $200 million for marketing, and that kind of goes a long way. just like, for example, going to those game shows, some of them cost like $1 million just to get in with a 2-minute trailer. So we don't have money
Wow.
for that. Good thing some of those trailers sometimes let us indies go there for free, because if they couldn't, that would be impossible to be there. There's definitely a difficulty on that. The game genre, and making sure that we kind of pass. Just 1 second. That we get some eyes on a very saturated market. That's difficult too. But from a technical standpoint, you're just two people, and we have to create the whole game from scratch. That's pretty daunting.
Yeah.
Every time you need to start a new game from scratch, I try not to think too much about it, because otherwise I
Sure.
would go crazy. But it's definitely difficult to make every system polished as you would like, fixing all the bugs and everything. There's definitely another whole level of difficulty. So I would say everything is very difficult once you try to get it to a certain level.
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, like I said, I know I'm a small fish in a big pond, but obviously my audience and the people that are here, I've got developer friends. I've got a lot of people that are in here that have their own YouTube channels, and we are very fond of the indie scene. We think some of the best ideas and some of the best creative games are coming out from the smaller devs. Again, you're not restricted by social economics. We talked about at the start of the show how your character is actually attractive, which is something that seems to be becoming less and less common with Western devs for whatever reason. That sort of stuff. Again, not that is the be all end all, but I mean, at the end of the day, there's a correlation. You look at what what they're doing in China and Korea and Japan, and a lot of their characters are very traditional in the sense, and then you come over here and everything just seems watered down, or like everybody's afraid to offend somebody or something like that. So yeah, but anyway, I'm going to open the floor up to the audience, guys. If you got a question here for Lord Zero, please drop it in the chat right now. And Lord Metro just says indies are where most of the innovation is, in my opinion, and he's definitely right. And while I think innovation is fantastic, and there are people pushing the envelope, it's also very risky when you're trying to push a new product too, because people are creatures of habit. A lot of us don't like, too much change. And again, if you like have enough familiarity with the big franchises, which you draw inspiration from, can help in a sense, because people sort of have at least an idea what to expect from your game to a certain degree, whereas you're going into completely say new IP that nobody really knows what it's about. There's always that big risk. Sometimes, like I said, you don't get the sales right up front, because a lot of times people will pick them up when they're like half price or something on the store. I mean, a sale's a sale, but would be nice, if people jumped in and bought some of the products early and got the word of mouth out. And that's what I was going to say. Like, we love indies. We think they're very important, very to this industry, to the gaming in general. And we just want great games, great experiences. So yeah, like kudos to you guys for, like I said, doing this and building this stuff. People are very excited here, and I'm certainly excited for it as well. So kudos to you guys, and take your time with it. Like I said, build a product that you want it to be, and I'm sure the fans will jump on board. And I can't wait to buy a copy of it when it comes out for sure. So we do have a question coming in from the chat. We got one from Lord Metroid. He says, "Is your main character inspired by Code Veronica?"
Actually, no. So even though we wanted to make a survival horror, we actually didn't look at the Resident Evil characters at all. Our main character is like I mentioned, is an inspiration of different characters. One of them being Kate from Lost. You can also say Nana from Nana anime. She's also one of the inspirations, especially because of the music background. So Resident Evil was not one of the it's never been really a reference in terms of the characters themselves.
Right.
The look of the game, yes,
Yeah.
but not really the characters themselves.
Nice. Do you have any further questions in the chat? Please leave them here. I'll bring them up on the screen. Do you have any questions for myself or from my audience, Lord?
I mean, so if you guys know Liminal Point, like, what's some of the things that you guys are mostly excited about the game?
Well, there you go. What are you excited about? We showed the trailer at the top of the show. What are you excited about? For me, like I said, it's satisfying combat. The horror elements are cool. But for me, it just just nails sort of the combat and the feel. The look looks phenomenal. Like everything about it, your lighting, the areas. There's quite a level of polish, and that's what I like. You can tell there's a lot of artwork. There's a lot of it looks really good. Bottom line, it looks really good, and it's kind of funny because if you go right back to the original RE games, they had that interesting design back in the day because the characters were like sort of modeled in 3D, but they had the pre-rendered backgrounds, so they almost look photorealistic even way back in the original like PlayStation 1, Sega Saturn era. But then the characters were all chunky and blocky. No, Pink Pickles has one. How did you get started into game development? Like what got you down this path? And do you remember like your first role, kind of what you were largely doing at the time?
Yeah. So how did I get into game development? So I really got interested in games very early on. Um, and there was a specific game, Warcraft 2, that had a map editor, and I kind of started making my own levels in it, and I kind of started getting addicted to it. Uh, and yeah, that kind of showed me that there's a passion there. Then StarCraft came with a more polished, map editor, and then Warcraft 3. So always making more complicated maps using scripting and all that. So that's probably the beginnings of it. Also, Bullfrog games like Dungeon Keeper, Theme Hospital, Theme Park was also a big part of creating, even in the game, creating those systems and managing things. That kind of got like really interested and got me really interested in games. And eventually, like growing up, I got more and more interested about making computer graphics, and eventually, it just kind of like I love games, so I'm going to try to work in games. Then I got my first job, and it was mostly doing arts and cinematics for some big AAA title, and it kind of went from there.
Nice. We got one coming in from Disney Delta who drops a chat. He says, how difficult is it to break into the industry these days and still be able to afford life? Seems like a tough go until you make something successful.
So I've been in the industry for a very long time, right? So at the point when I entered was actually very, very difficult. I entered the industry in 2010, and this was after the 2009 just like the economic crisis. So it was very difficult because there was nobody hiring at the moment. I think we are seeing something similar right now with AI and also the economic situation that the world is going through at the moment. So it's and I've spoken to people who are just starting to get started as well. So it's definitely not as easy at that, like when some other moments in history where things are going a bit smoother, but it's not impossible. If you the thing I tell everybody, like newcomers, is you don't really in games in the games industry, nobody really cares about PhDs or courses or whatever. What matters is what you can achieve by yourself. Like if you're an artist and you have a great portfolio, that's that's all you need. Doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter where you are. It's all about your work, right? If your work well, I'm speaking about like in a normal situation. I don't know about the DEI situation, like where people just hire for quotas and stuff. That I'm not familiar. But in terms of like how it used to work is, if you're good enough, we need a specific person for this. So we need to do this thing for the game. We have a role for it. This person seems to fit. We interview this person. This person is not crazy. This person is hired. Right. This is how, and also the team culture. Like, does it fit in our team culture? So if that's the case, this person is a good candidate. So it doesn't really, you don't need to have like extensive experience, even though a lot of them say you have to have 3 years, this and that. That doesn't really matter. What matters is, do we think you can do the job? Yes. Are you crazy? No. Okay. This person seems like a person for this specific role. This from, like an artist's perspective. If you're a game designer, show game jams, show that you can make levels and gameplay and all this kind of prototypey stuff that looks interesting and polished. Give them for the recruiters to play. Then they will give it to the game designers or the game directors to play. So that's pretty much the way you can actually
Yeah.
get into the industry. If you want to go indie, like if you're an indie developer, you're pretty much going to get a job on AAA anytime because you've already proven yourself that you can do the job.
Yeah, it must be an interesting thing when you're hiring people, because you obviously need technical people. Experience counts. One the other side of the coin. This goes for every job. It's you can't get, if nobody hires you and say you're a newcomer coming in. Well, we need experience. How do you get experience if nobody hires you? Right. That's always the catch-22. But a lot of it is about
nobody
finding
really,
people.
a lot of CVs say you need to have like 5 years experience for this junior role. Nobody really cares about that. I don't know why they write it that way, but honestly it's mostly about, do we need a person for this role a lot at this moment? And if you really need somebody really badly, like all the requirements will, I've seen this, a lot of the requirements will decrease to the point like, are we sure we even want to hire somebody of this caliber for this role? Because it seems like our standard has gone so low that this thing, again, not trying to say anything bad about anybody, but sometimes you see people that really don't fit. They don't have the experience necessary, or don't have the quality of their work necessary to be in a certain role. But sometimes management is so like scared about missing a deadline that they just want to increase the headcount, even though internally as a team we know that if you hire somebody that is not what you need, and they cannot deliver, you're actually going to hurt the project more, because you'll need to redo the work they're doing, or in some cases, as I've seen, they're actually going to damage the project, and other departments will get pissed off at you because you hired somebody that is just is just causing problems all over the board. So sometimes again, less headcount is better than just hiring and trying to make the game go fast.
And I think one thing from my personal perspective, just looking at the industry, is I think is never get too comfortable with anything, right? Never get to the point where you think that your product is so big that it cannot fail, because we saw that Call of Duty this year. Well, it's still a phenomenally successful title, and any developer would love to have, their bad day would be somebody else's most successful year on record. We get that. But like we saw, it did take a plunge this year because they took a few risks with the franchise. It's been kind of like, the quality wise, it's just not quite up to snuff. Too much, too fast. And that whole "it's too big to fail" kind of mantra. We're seeing this with Rockstar Games. They used to pump out a few games back in the day, but ever since GTA 5 became an absolute massive juggernaut, they haven't made a single game. They haven't made anything since they did make Red Dead Redemption 2. But this is what I'm saying. You went from getting like a couple of games during a generation, where now they got one or two big IPs, and there's nothing for 10 years. That's insane to think, with the studio and the talents they have, that's all we've gotten from them, And I'm sure GTA 6 is going to be it's going to be on another level. It should be, when you're spending, a couple $100 million to build a game. But this is a problem. To me, I don't necessarily think it's a good thing. And sometimes it's almost like you almost need some of those guys to fail to a certain degree, because they start to get a little bit too cocky, too big for their britches. And then it becomes all about, let's focus on DLC and let's take the industry down this other rabbit hole kind of thing. Yeah, it makes you money, but you're not innovating. You're not really doing things. I don't know. I'm off on another tangent, but I think where I'm going with that. We got a couple more questions here before we close out. We got one coming in from our good friend D487, who drops a super chat question here. So he says, what's the work-life balance where you have to walk away from the desk hour a day, just Sundays, etc.? What's the non-gaming activity hobby, or is it always gaming? So it's kind of a multifaceted question there.
Yeah.
I guess what he's saying is, how do you balance everything out, and what do you do to kind of turn yourself off and stuff like that?
So I think I'm a very extreme case. Even a game developer friend, came to visit, says I'm a little bit of an edge case. I think I usually work. It's funny that they mentioned Naughty Dog, because I have a bit of a history with Naughty Dog myself. It's kind of interesting that I think I work around between 14 and 15 hours a day. every
Yeesh.
day, Sundays, Saturdays, holidays, every single day. For the most part, I work between 14 and 15 hours a day, which is not super different from some of the companies I used to work for. So I kind of used to it, but I kind of love my craft. That
Mhm.
I'm always thinking about games. If I'm not, I mean, we have kids, so we also, I like to spend times
Yeah,
with my kids too. I
absolutely.
hope they can become game developers. So that would be super. That's the dream, like the whole family just makes games and
Right.
we all make our games. That would be wonderful. I really hope that's in the cards for us. But yeah, I mean, 14 to 15 hours every day. Sometimes I mentioned previously, I took like a day off to just play from start to finish Resident Evil 9.
Mhm.
But we go out sometimes and take a little break here and there. But yeah, Liminal Point is pretty demanding. Been working nonstop on it because I'm really passionate about the game. And if I sometimes I take a break from Liminal Point and I start working on other prototypes for other future games. So it's always kind of the same in terms of hobbies. I used to have art hobbies, so I used to do digital sculpting and other things in terms of computer graphics. But now, because I'm making games, indie games, I have to kind of make everything, right? So it kind of encompasses all my hobbies. Like I need to make a new enemy, so I'll go to ZBrush and I'll start sculpting and making the enemy. So that's my
Right.
character, artist part of me that kind of gets to use. That was my hobby, so now it's part of my my
Right.
work as well. I wanted to do like concept art, or I wanted to do this or that, all that. I wanted to do games on the side. Now I'm making games full time, or the programming for the games,
Right.
because I was working on AAA
Well,
before, so it's always kind of connected.
that in itself, like you said, like being essentially your own boss, your own developer, that's kind of got to be a good thing and a bad thing, right? Because if you decide halfway through this game, well, I should add another character, I should, like, you must have your own cutoff point, because again, for memory, for tech, timelines, like you could probably sit there and come up with 40 different characters. But obviously, the more stuff you put in a game, it's going to take more time. It creates more memory. So is that like where you kind of got to look at stuff and put it on a cutting room floor and say,
Yeah, yeah,
this is a
absolutely.
great idea, but this could be for a sequel if the game should be successful enough to warrant one? Like, where do you draw the line on that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, we have majority of the game planned, with a little bit of leeway, depending on
Mm-hmm.
player feedback and all that. But the majority of the game, like the story beats are all like cemented. It's just a matter of like getting to the in between points, writing some of the stuff in between
Mm-hmm.
for the story, like dialogues, story moments. But the actual story itself is all done. The characters, the enemies, we have pretty much an idea of all the enemies we're going to have in the game, and we already made, I would say, like 70% of them. But a little bit of leeway, if we want to add one or cut one, we have room for that without destroying the game. We know how many bosses we're going to have and which bosses are going to be and how they're going to operate. So the whole game is pretty much planned, and any new ideas that we have, we usually save it
Yeah.
for a rainy day, for a future game. Or if it doesn't take too long, we can incorporate onto this one.
Right.
So, but time is definitely, excuse me, time is definitely something that we manage.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure that the game doesn't balloon to something completely crazy, because again, we would get into Ubisoft territory there, right? Like
Yeah.
all the features, all the kitchen sink into the game, and we don't want that. We want to be a focused game,
Yeah.
So if anything, it sounds like a good idea, we really need to kind of think hard about it. Is it worth to be the game?
So like the old philosophy, the more
It's
stuff you make, the more stuff can break.
noise.
Is that the old philosophy? The more stuff you make, there's more stuff to break.
Yeah, it depends. It depends.
Sometimes.
Like if your systems are quite robust,
Yeah.
like adding, that's one of the reasons I kind of wanted to rewrite parts of the game in terms of the code, to make sure that the systems are really robust. Like if I want to make a new enemy, here's the steps I need to make. It's very streamlined, very quickly.
Yeah.
I can get a new enemy working the game like in a day.
Yeah.
Because everything is so robust, and because they all kind of operate in a way that the system is complex enough but robust enough that it can get all the features necessary for this type of enemy. it's not going to break anything else because that's been tested before, right? If it's a new feature, yeah, sure, then we need to make sure that we test and all that. But if it's a new feature, we need to ask ourselves, is this really important for this game? And above everything, will this make, and I think this is a good question for any developer to ask themselves. This sounds like a cool idea. Will it make the game better? If it doesn't make the game better in any way, it should not be in there.
Yeah, indeed. We got a couple more questions. We're going to close out the show here. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. It's been awesome so far, but we got one coming in from our good friend Pink Pickles. She says, what did you learn from Devil is in the Details that you're using on this game?
So we definitely learned a few things. And a few things we learned from Liminal Point that we did correctly on the Devil, which is kind of surprising. So there's some things we got bad lessons from the Devil. Some things we got bad lessons from Liminal Point. One of them is some of the good lessons in the Devil is the way we structured the game and to create tools and then polish the hell out of the prototype and then kind of make the games using the tools. The game went very far, very fast. We had to do minimal cuts. It was done in a very short amount of time. So the whole game took 7 months to make. So that was very, very positive. So we were using the same approach on Liminal Point to create, create the tools, create the levels, but at the same time, focus on the tools first and then just have the whole game kind of planned and then go from there. Bad lessons from the Devil is that, which is kind of weird to say, but too much originality is not a good thing in terms of getting sales, for example. Like our game is too original, too difficult to make a marketing pitch. It's difficult to explain to people what it is. So that's one of the lessons we learned for Liminal Point. We want everything from the logo, from the first thing you see on screen, from the character design, from the environments. Everything needs to scream the genre we were aiming, which is survival horror. So just from the logo, you should know what type of game you're looking at. So that's a big lesson we learned from the Devil. In terms of bad lessons from Liminal Point, that we actually did successfully on the Devil, is I think we started trying to make the development of the game on consoles a little bit too early. And that adds a huge amount of complication in terms of building the engine from source. Every time there's a plugin that needs to be updated or anything from Visual Studio that needs to be updated, that's a huge undertaking. That can stop the game production for a day or two. And sometimes there's other issues. I need to rewrite some of the plugins code. I need to rewrite my own code. So definitely it's very complicated. So what we did well in the Devil that we failed on Liminal Point on that sense is the Devil was already a finished game when we ported it to console, and it was very easy to do that. So for Liminal Point, that's also one of the reasons why we had to rewrite parts of the game, is we're just going to be focusing on the console versions when we have a beta of the game. When the game is playable from start to finish and all the features and all the tech is done, then we're going to start making sure that the game works on console. Because working on all the 3 platforms at the same time, it is very complicated. It's very complicated. One thing, stops working on Xbox because of a security patch, and then you need to update the game, and then the plugins have not been updated. There's a lot of vendors. There's a lot of third party. It gets really complicated. Yeah, that's one of the things we learned is don't try to go to consoles too early in development.
Gotcha. No, that's great. No, definitely makes a ton of sense. Well, I hope that everybody will give it. Hopefully, by this show today, you get a few more sales of that of your first game, The Devil's in the Details. Like I said, I think right now I saw it earlier. I think it's on sale on PlayStation stores. So go check it out, guys. If you get a chance, make sure you're following these guys on social media. It is HideWorks Games, right? That's correct. We're an X.
Yep. That's right. HideWorks.
Yeah, go give them a follow and follow on to progress. They've been very active on social media, and that is part of the deal. I do have a quick question to ask you before we close out. So, who's doing the voicing then for your characters in the games?
For the Devil is in the Details, we hired an actor, amazing guy, and for Liminal Points, we're doing castings on X, and we get a lot of auditions. I think just for Lyra, we got over 500 auditions, and we listened to all of them. So that's a day or two of work just on that, and then we go from there. We start making selections of people who we think it's the right voice for her,
Right.
and then we kind of go from that smaller selection until we find the final person. And in this case, it's Abigail Carey. She's the voice of Lyra, and she's wonderful.
Okay, well, if you ever need me for anything, I come from a radio background. I'm pretty good at doing voices. You can ask my chat. I do a pretty damn good Arnold
That's
Schwarzenegger
awesome.
impression.
That's awesome. Keep an eye on our audition.
I'm not part of a voice actors guild, but I can do a lot of different voices and different stuff and imitations. So yeah, keep in mind, I don't even need pay. I would do it for fun. I would just be honored to be a part of a project at some point. I think it'd be so cool. So if you ever need me for anything, just let me know. Be happy to pass along some clips or samples or whatever.
For sure.
Yeah. I used to be a radio announcer before I did this. That was actually one of my full-time jobs.
You do sound like a radio announcer. You have that golden voice.
So to get rid of the illusion here, I'll do the voice for you here. I'll turn off the camera real quick. Here's the voice. Check this one out. See if you can guess who it is. Come on, let's do it. Let's get out there. We're going to go in and we're going to keep the crap into that crazy monster that's coming down the hallway. I'm too tired of it. I want my big gun, and I'm going to go in there and I'm going to shoot this guy and I'm going to blow into smithereens. Pretty sure
the acting was pretty good too. The acting was on point.
But lots of stuff. I can do something like, they guys. I can do it. Like, trust me, man. Like, you just tell me kind of what vibe you're going for, I'll come up with something. But
that's awesome. Anyway. That's awesome.
Yeah, lots of stuff. Scooby Doo and all that sort of crap, and Kermit the Frog, and all sorts of weird shit. All right, so we're gonna close the show. We had a lot of great. Go get to the chopper, do it. Come on. All right, we're gonna close out the show here, guys. Want to thank Lord Zero and Lady Zero. She was in the background. She couldn't be with us. She's not feeling it well. I think her voice is a little strained, so that's okay. But we had a great interview today. I really appreciate your time. I'm going to let you get back to it. Get back hard to work on Liminal Point. I guarantee you drummed up some sales on a lot of interest in the community, and we'll be happy to do our best to help you promote your new game and your project as much as we certainly can, because we definitely support those who are, like I said, putting in the work and putting out some great product. And a lot of us, like I said, we're big survival horror fans too. So there's a lot of people here in the show and that are watching on the replay as well that will be very interested in Liminal Point when it drops. So just keep us posted and we'll get the word out for you for sure. Yeah. Oh, let's see. There you go. You got a sale already. It just got the devil's in the details. I'm looking forward to it. So there you go.
Awesome. That's awesome.
There you go. Every copy helps because, like I said, the word of mouth gets around, and like I said, you kind of get on the radar, right? That's how it starts. So thanks so much for your time today, and we wish you all the best success in the future. And if you ever got something you want to share with us, just let me know, and I'll be happy to certainly share it out with the community. So
absolutely, this was great. Thank you for having us. It was a lot of fun.
Let everybody know again where they can catch you or anything else. If you guys have channels or any social media, I do think I have most of it linked below, but go ahead.
So we basically most of our updates are shared on X. That's our main platform.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, my voice is kind of bad because I'm also sick. We can also find updates on our website, which is HideWorksGames.com. But if you follow us on X, it's pretty much the platform to be, because we usually post everything there first. And yeah, please wish list Liminal Point and check out our other games too. And yeah, thank you for helping us out. We really appreciate it. We are a small indie studio, and all the help we can get sharing our game and get our game seen by more people, the more likely we'll be able to continue doing this in the future. So thank you for that.
Well, it means a lot to me as well, that you take time out of your schedule to be here. I mean, simply because, I'm a small channel, because I'm a small fish in a big pond. But you're helping me. I'm hopefully helping you guys. Like it's a community effort, and like I said, it's about the word of mouth, and the fact you take your time out to be a part of this is awesome. It just means that you're down to earth, and you don't feel like, oh my God, I can't take an hour out of my day to doing it, because some people are like that. There are some people I would love to get on this show as well, but maybe I'm just not a big enough personality for them, I guess. I don't know. Sometimes I know there's litigations too. There's a lot of stuff that people can and cannot say. A lot of people don't want to put themselves out there and afraid to say so, especially when you're in a corporate setting. It's a little bit more different too, because you got marketing teams and you got this and that, and I kind of get it from that point, and that's where I've always said, like, if you were in that stage, you just kind of tell me these are the things I can't answer, this is the stuff that I can. I totally get it. That's how the industry works sometimes. So you don't want to damage your product. I certainly don't think you've done any damage to your product here today. If anything, you've helped boost its profile amongst our community. So again, thank you for that.
Thank you.
And Lord Metro says, thank you for the interview, HideWorks. Always good to learn something new. We hope you did learn a few things today about game development and, of course, the new product, Liminal Point, which he hopes will drop probably, it looks most likely, probably coming in 2027. So keep an eye out for it, guys. It is on PC. It'll be on the Xbox Series platforms and the PlayStation platform as well. So, all right, we'll talk to you guys later. Have yourself a great day, everybody. Stay tuned for more, and we'll be back soon with more from these guys.
Thank you. Bye.